Hi everyone, to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make my cheesy pull-apart dinner rolls. These are going to be filled with Graviera cheese, which is a Greek cheese that's very similar to Gruyere cheese. So Gruyere would be the perfect substitute. If you're not a fan of that cheese or if you can't find it, you can use a combination of mozzarella and cheddar or mozzarella and whatever your favorite cheese is that has a little bit of flavor and stringy pull to it. You can use that. You could even fill this with feta cheese too. They're so good, but they won't be stringy or really they won't have that pull to them. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to begin by activating the yeast. So in my mixing bowl over here, I'll add 1.5 cups of lukewarm water, 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, and 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar. Give it a mix, and you want to make sure you set it aside for about 6 to 8 minutes or until a foamy cloud forms at the top of the mixture. If that doesn't happen, then the yeast is not going to activate. It will not do its job. You're going to have to throw that out and start with a fresh batch. In another bowl, just go ahead and add 4 cups or 630 grams of all-purpose flour and a teaspoon of salt. Whisk that all together, and then to the yeast mixture, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of olive oil and then all of the flour mixture, and then we'll attach the dough hook to the mixing bowl and let this knead for 10 minutes on low speed. This is what the dough should look like once it's done kneading. Lightly grease the bowl. Make sure it's a large bowl because this is going to double in volume. Transfer the dough into the bowl and toss it around until it's coated. Cover the bowl with either plastic wrap or a clean kitchen towel and set it aside in the warmest part of your house until it's doubled in volume. That can take anywhere from 1.5 hours up to 3 hours. It just depends on the temperature in the house. Once that's done, then what we're going to do is grate the cheese. So I'm using Graviera cheese today. You can use Gruyere, which is almost exactly the same, or a combination of Gruyere and mozzarella if you want it a little bit lighter. We'll need almost a pound of it, and I have these wedges over here. I'm just going to grate them using a box grater. I prefer to freshly grate cheese over buying it already grated because to already grated cheese, they tend to put chemicals in there and these powders, and it ends up not melting as smoothly. But I do have this mozzarella cheese also. I'll add a little bit to it, and it is already shredded, and I bought it that way because I couldn't find a block of mozzarella in my supermarket. I'll just be using the tiniest amount anyway, just to lighten it up a little bit. The dough has doubled in volume. It's nice and fluffy, and you don't want to skip this step. Otherwise, the bread rolls will be dense instead of light and fluffy, which is what we're looking for. We'll divide this into 2 portions, each portion into 8 little pieces, as equal as you can get them until we have 16 rolls. And then I also roll them up into balls just like this. Once that's done, I'll just make space on my counter and I'll take a few balls at a time. I'll flatten them out so that way there's space for the cheese, and then I'll put a little mound of cheese onto the center of each disc. It's about 1.5 to 2 tablespoons. I'm not really measuring. I just put as much as I can in there because I want these to be really cheesy. Then I'll gather the edges of the dough towards the center to cover the filling and pinch them together. Roll it again into little balls so that way they can just seal and hold their shape. And you can place these in a 9 by 13 inch baking pan. I'm using mine because I'm doing a lot of videos for the holidays, so most of my pans are taken. I'll use this skillet over here. You can use a 10-inch cast iron pan if you'd like. I also like to sprinkle some semolina flour on the bottom to give it kind of like that pizza texture. You don't have to do it. You can just skip that step completely. Arrange the balls of cheese-filled dough into the pan and then set it aside for 30 minutes just to fluff up a little bit. In the meantime, you can preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the dough has puffed up and risen a little bit more, then you can just brush the tops with some melted butter. I like using salted melted butter for this because it has more flavor, but you can use unsalted if you like. These are going to bake on the center rack for 30 to 35 minutes or until they're beautifully golden all around. They're going to rise a little bit more in the oven. Before they come out of the oven, we're going to make the topping that's going to get brushed on them once they come out. Just melt about 2 ounces or 60 grams of salted butter. Add a little pinch of salt to it, a teaspoon of dried thyme, a teaspoon of dried oregano, and a teaspoon of granulated garlic, and mix that all up. And as soon as the rolls come out of the oven while they're piping hot, brush that topping on all over them, every nook and cranny. Make sure you don't miss a spot. This is going to add lots of flavor. At this point, we're just going to allow them to sit at room temperature for about 20 minutes, and then they will be ready to serve. So the hardest part of this recipe is waiting for them to cool down a little bit so that way you can bite into them. They smell incredible. That when the garlic and the herbs and the butter hit the hot bread rolls, I mean, is there anything better than butter and bread? In my book, there isn't. I don't know. It's like a drug for me. Bread and carbs and all of that is just so good. They smell amazing. They go good with everything. If you're thinking about bringing something to a Thanksgiving potluck or a holiday potluck, these are going to be perfect. I mean, they do take a little bit of work, as you saw, but all of the steps are very simple to do and easy. It's just a little bit of time, because when you're making homemade bread, it needs time to rise, and that is such an important step, because if you don't let it rise properly, then they won't be light and fluffy. They end up being dense. So as long as it rises and doubles, at least doubles in volume that first time around, they're going to be fluffy and delicious. They smell so good. I need to take a bite. And just look at how that cheese stretches when you take one of the rolls out. So good. Graviera cheese or Gruyere cheese has a little bit of nuttiness to it. It's a little bit nutty, it's salty, and it's perfect with the oregano and the thyme and the garlic mixture on top. These taste like glorified garlic knots. If you've ever had them from your favorite pizzeria, it's like that, but 10 times better. I hope you guys give this recipe a try. If you do, let me know how they turn out in the comment section down below. To get the whole recipe and to print it out, you can head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com. You can get this. I also have written 2 books full of Thanksgiving menus, so it'll take you from start to finish on how to host the perfect Thanksgiving, make ahead tips and tricks. So make sure, check those out. You can download them for a very low price. So check those out. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Gracias.